space ADDS on YouTube, and it should go on. So we are actually, I just started streaming, so we should be live. And
let's see here.
I will turn this off.
Let's see.
Oh, dude, yeah. Okay, so you are upright. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
upright,
Okay.
and
We're
I
good.
don't know
We're
why
good.
I see you as upside down. That's weird.
Well,
Okay.
I don't know. Talk
Um,
to someone upside down if it's all right.
yeah, I'm cool with it, man. I
All
really
right.
appreciate you talking with me, by the way. I just I'm enraptured by this situation, and I don't think people are taking it seriously. I just want to give you a quick intro, though, just so people kind of know where you're coming from, and kind of know that you have an opinion that does hold some weight. I think more so than a lot of the population, because of your background. So, Dr. Paul Cottrell, did I say that right?
Cottrell. Cottrell.
Cottrell is a researcher
Cottrell.
in
Yeah.
chaos theory, and he is interested in modeling financial markets. Some have considered him a polymath of sorts. Born in Detroit, Michigan, he has extensive professional experience in engineering and design. After retiring from automotive engineering, he pursued interests in corporate finance involving publishing, retail, and nonprofit industries. He currently is a proprietary trader specializing in currency and energy markets. So that is a very short intro. And if anybody wants to read more about Dr. Cottrell's life and work, I will put his website as well as his YouTube channel in the description box below. But how are you doing, Doctor? How is it? Because you live in Manhattan, correct?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay,
Lower Manhattan. Lower Manhattan.
Lower
By
Manhattan.
By Wall Street.
Okay, I just had two. My cousin who was actually looking for a job in New York had to fly back, and my friend who lives in New York also had to fly back. A quick question: are you from Wisconsin?
No, Michigan.
Oh,
I
okay.
was
I was like,
born and raised in Michigan.
okay, you were okay. I heard the Midwest accent,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
was like, this guy's definitely Midwest. But what is your take on this situation? Because I think it's definitely, I think it's bigger than 9/11. What do you think?
I think there's a similarity to 9/11. I call it this event is going to issue in what is called the Biopatriot Act to erode our civil liberties, similar to what happened right after 9/11, where the actual Patriot Act was initiated, that it built up the TSA, the Homeland Security, the FISA courts. So there's a lot of similarities to it, but there are differences. This is a slow rollout, a slow 9/11.
Very, very slow.
9/11
I
was
think,
fast,
yeah, because
and
of that, it makes it in a way more dangerous.
yeah, because people become apathetic, they become complacent, they go to sleep. They're the amount of civil liberties that are eroded after this, I think, will be more than what happened during 9/11. Now, what is interesting is that I call it the bookends, and bookends are like mirrors, right? You have books, and then you have bookends to make the books before they fall, right?
Okay, I'm following.
So they're like L's, right? They're like an L, right?
Hmm.
Right. So bookends are mirror images of each other, right?
Yep.
So if you look at 9/11, 9/11 is the mirror image of this event, Wuhan, right? And how would someone say why how can they be mirror images?
Yeah, could you
And
explain
why?
that? Because I think on the surface level, it doesn't seem like that.
Right, but they are, because the twin towers fell in 102 minutes from the moment of impact from the planes to the time that both of them fell was 102 minutes. What we call Wuhan, the crisis that we're in, was through the simulation that was called Event 201. So 102 is the mirror image of 201.
Okay, you lost me there.
So
Where'd you get these numbers again?
okay, 102 minutes
Mm-hmm.
took, once the planes hit the twin towers on 9/11, it
Yep.
took 102 minutes for them to fall.
Okay, got that one. And then with the 201.
The event 201 is the simulation that was played by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation on August 18th that dealt with the coronavirus
Was
that was
that
going to
last
infect
year,
the world.
or
Yeah,
because he did a
last
TED
year.
talk too as well?
Yeah, no, this one was October 18th, 2019,
Mm-hmm.
where they were doing a simulation where it was a group of people. They were like government officials. It was a role play kind of thing. What would happen if there was a coronavirus that infected the world?
Okay. So it was like a
And
war
how would
game, but
they?
with a virus.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it happened on October 18th. And the first cases that were taking place in Wuhan were around the 1st of November of that year, of last year. So I think that there is a strong connection between 9/11 and Wuhan because it's the bookend of a long rollout of an erosion of civil liberties and a more um, integration of a new world government. What they the next rollout for the new world government is actually what they call One Health. If you look
One
up
Health.
One Health is
Okay.
part of Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030.
Okay.
So
So
and
Agenda 2030, I have heard about, actually via David Icke.
Mhm.
But before we lose people, because we might, talking about stuff this deep, could we go? Could we first focus on the science, just so people can understand the danger of this pathogen and what makes it different than pathogens that have encountered humans in the past?
Well, the last pandemic that we've had was 1918, Spanish flu,
Spanish flu.
right, of 1918. So it
Mhm.
was over 100 years ago, 102 years ago. All right.
Right at
That
the end of
was,
World War One.
well, it technically, it technically was during, I believe, World War
Yeah,
One. I
I
don't think
think
it
it
was
started
right
right
after.
toward right when it was
It
still
was
going on.
during, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think it was technically
towards the
during,
end though.
but yeah, it's near the end. All right, but the bottom line here is that um, we had a virus back then that was zoonotic, that was naturally forming through just evolution, right? Just like the Black Plague and other plagues in the past. But with this case, we have something that's bioengineered. And we've been bioengineering viruses for a long time in labs. That's part of the scientific discovery.
And you're pretty sure this is
Yeah.
bioengineered.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I watched your talk with Sean Atwood actually twice last night, just
Mm-hmm.
because you do get into the weeds with science, which I love, but I it's all new terminology to me, so I had to listen to it again, and yeah, I found this really interesting. And you said that basically you can tell if they've changed the genome of the virus, as I understand it, and you said that one or two in nature is that could happen and is normal, as is in the past. But this particular pathogen has been modified 4 times, either artificially or naturally. And you
Exactly.
believe it's been done um, artificially based
Not
on.
not only believe, I can point you to the papers that show
Yep.
it.
Hmm.
I mean, that's so I looked at it in three different directions. One is a bioinformatic method.
Hmm.
One is a statistical method, and another one is tracking the research papers,
Mm.
because part of this was, science for scientific discovery.
Okay. So
And
for the literature is publicly accessible, as I
yep,
understand, correct?
yep, yep.
So because of that, let's focus on the science stuff, because I think that's where you have a lot of knowledge that people don't. Could you just talk a little bit about yeah, just a little bit more detail about the bioinformatic
Okay, so
vector?
the bioinformatic part of this was by looking at the NIH database, and you can type in certain codes, certain keywords, or certain genomes, and compare them. It's called a blast search. And when you do that, you can. When I did that on the first release of the genome by China back in late December, or late January, which was I did it on January 25th.
Mm.
You could see similar homology to bat SARS like and SARS viruses.
And homology is basically the makeup.
Homology is a term that it's like equal. Just assume
Okay.
it's equal. All right, so
Mm.
it's genomes that are equal.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Homo, same. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
I see it.
So they have similar homology, similar genomic sequences in the right area of the genome. So the bat SARS like virus had a better replicase, and the SARS viruses had better S protein. So that's the reason why SARS was so virulent when we had the SARS outbreak, because they had a better S protein to attach to the ACE2 receptors.
A higher degree of
Virulence.
spreadability.
Yep.
Virulence. Okay. Yep.
So what they did in the lab, going all the way back to 2008, was they combined these. They took the best of both worlds and put them together.
So
They
the
took
high
the
degree
replicase.
of virulence, and then what was the second aspect?
The replicase is the ability to multiply.
Okay.
So so if you have the ability to multiply, but you don't have the ability to really infect, you don't have that much virulence. But if you have a lot of virulence, but you can't multiply that much, it dies out quick.
Right.
But if you put them together, it multiplies a lot, and it's virulent.
And it's powerful. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
highly contagious.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
not
only that, to get a better affinity to the ACE2 receptor, all right, they had to put in HIV homology. They had to put parts of HIV virus, parts of its spike protein, into the spike protein of the coronavirus, which is called the GP120, the glycoprotein 120 of HIV. That is the spike protein of HIV. But they took pieces of it and inserted it in key areas of the genome for Wuhan to allow it to be more virulent.
If a good metaphor for this, I think, is like if anyone, like I think like an assault rifle, like tweaking like the red dot sight or just attachments and stuff, or like how they change weapon and arms technology, and they're doing that at a molecular and viral level, correct?
That's a good analogy. I mean, it was, they tweaked it to the point where it was more virulent. Now, there's some molecular biology reasons why that happens. There's a cleavage point for the furin protease inside our cytoplasm that will cut the protein, the spike protein. It has to cut it, and then it folds. And if it folds correctly, it makes it more virulent. So this cleavage point is right at one of the HIV insertion points.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and that makes it the ability to cut correctly from the furin to allow it to fold correctly, to be more virulent, on top of additional insertions of GAG 120 from HIV to allow it to have the right amino acid charges to dock in to these receptors correctly. And what has come out recently is it's not just ACE2 receptor that's in our lungs and other tissues, but other receptors that are more tied to the immune system. And this is part of the reason why they had the HIV, because when they were studying it when they were studying it in bats, they wanted to understand how the bat become a host, so they can understand the biology.
Why does the bat always carry these things?
Why are the bat is always carrying these things? And then if it became more virulent for humans, what would be the vaccine or the therapeutic that could be used to block the virus? That's what they were doing on the scientific end. All right, so that's, and I can, that was the genomic, thing. If you look at the probability of all this that be happening on a natural level, where you had bat SARS and HIV in the same bat by a fish market that happened to be right next to the Wuhan P4 facility, the probability of that is like super small. So it wasn't naturally made. It was biologically, and it was a bioengineered virus. Now, I have a working hypothesis
You do.
that in
I would really be interested to
2018,
hear this. Yeah, go ahead.
so in 2018, or I'm sorry, 2015, I believe that the P4 facility bifurcated the research from a scientific perspective, and it had dual path where there was a scientific line and a bioweapon line. And that it is possible that the Wuhan strand that leaked out of the P4 lab is the bioweapon.
The weapon.
That
Okay.
what is infecting everybody is the bioweapon.
Mm-hmm.
And that the RATG13 line possibly is actually the bioengineered line for scientific purposes. Because it seems
Okay.
to me that the RATG13 line is less virulent.
Because there is, for those that don't know, there's two strains of this virus out.
Two families. I don't know.
Two families.
You know, there's enough differences that you can say that they may have been developed from a something similar, like a similar engineered strain, but over time started to mutate in the lab, and then leaked out.
Oh, okay.
But they were developed in parallel. There's a bioengineered virus, then there's a scientific line, and then a bioengineered one. And I believe the bioengineered one became more and more. Both of them are bioengineered.
Right.
One's weaponized. One is scientificized. Right?
So those paths.
Both of them were being developed, but as time went on, they became less and less similar.
Mm-hmm.
So
in their objectives and even their molecular makeup as well.
I think that the Wuhan virus was designed purposely to infect more receptors, while the RATG13 line did not. It's not designed to infect multiple receptors.
And does this affect different? I mean, obviously it affects old people more, but that can be said of any sickness or illness.
Well, there's two things to consider here. People that are old normally have comorbidity issues, meaning that they have other diseases. All right, but when you're older, also, either because of the disease or because of just age, certain receptors are upregulated and other receptors are downregulated. So because of that, if you have the right receptors that it connects to that are upregulated, plus other diseases, it's like a double whammy.
Yeah, it's a death sentence for most people.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very easy to understand why it's such a problem.
Mm-hmm. Are there other demographics, races, ethnicities that it affects more than others? Obviously, it's been affecting men more than women.
Well, when we were looking at the research at the very beginning, and we only knew of the ACE2, the preliminary research was showing that it was affecting more men than women, which is still the case, and that it seemed as though it was Asian men more than any other cohort. Now, why
would that be?
Well, at that time, we were only looking at ACE2. And that's the thought was is that Asian men have more propensity to smoking. So when people smoke, it upregulates the ACE2. So it seemed as though it was gravitating more to Asian men. But this is early on in the disease, and it was primarily in Asia. Not too many people were infected with Asian. With the vape? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Because what happens is that it causes inflammation, and by causing inflammation, it causes a cytokine communication, and it'll upregulate certain
response.
Right. So all right. So what is happening is, as the Western world is getting more infected, and we start to realize that white males, Caucasians in general, their infection rates are higher, and that some of the complications of COVID-19 are rising in that cohort.
Hmm.
There was a research paper that was presented, and it stated that there are multiple receptors.
In white
And
males.
well, these receptors are in everybody, but they
Mm.
are more pronounced in Caucasians.
Caucasians of
In
both sexes.
Caucasians,
Okay.
and yeah. So ACE2 is more uh, gender related. So it's upregulated for males.
Okay.
But the CD209 and the CD299 receptors that are tied to the primarily for the immune system.
Mm.
All right, those are upregulated. There's more of them when you're elderly,
Hmm.
and when you're Caucasian, and when you smoke.
Okay.
All right.
So I think it's
So what
very
that
important
basically
people know
means that
this.
if
Yeah.
you're a male, you
Hmm.
smoke,
Hmm.
and you're white, you got a problem.
Yeah. What if you're half white and it's your mother?
Well, then you got like half. But the thing is the point is that that depending on your age, and it's not just your chronological age, it is your biological age.
Oh
You could
yeah.
be
If you're out of
65.
shape. Mm.
Yeah, exactly. You could be
If you're
65, and if you're in shape, you may be really 45.
mm,
And
100%.
if you're 45, you could be 80. You
Mm.
know,
That's why
it just depends.
in obesity too in this country, I just it just looks like a really, I don't know. It just it's looking bad, and like it's weird, man. Like I see a lot of smart people not really doing much, and I don't understand it. And I don't know. What are you seeing from people around you?
Well, we're in shelter in place right now in Manhattan, so
Okay.
very few people are walking around. Normally, it's either they have to go to the doctor, they
Mm,
either work at the hospital,
mm,
or they're considered essential workers. All other workers are deemed to stay at home.
right.
You can walk around a little bit, like if you have a pet,
Mm,
um, but you're not supposed to congregate. You're not
mm.
supposed to go to a restaurant or anything like that.
Definitely not. Yeah, I'm in the same situation. I'm in Oregon right now. I think we just had our first death in the county. It's not really that bad. I think we have 9 confirmed cases, which is really good. And I think they're all old people, but I can definitely see that going up because we're so close to Seattle.
Hmm. Hmm. So yeah, I mean it's getting bad everywhere. New York has the most cases. New York State has the most cases, and New York
Mm,
City has the most cases in any city.
yeah.
We have, I think, around 500 deaths now,
Okay.
and they're setting up morgues outside in New
Brand new
York.
morgues.
They're setting up morgue tents
Oh,
in
tents.
the
Okay.
street. In the street.
This is what they do in wartime.
Yeah,
For yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And I would
And
say this is I mean, it's weird because it is a war, but we don't really know against whom. Do we? I mean, it's against the virus, but not necessarily just that, right?
well, I mean, it is. We have to have a war footing.
Yeah.
On my channel I called it mashing.
Mashing?
I'm a little, yeah, mash.
Mash.
So mash was a TV series back in the
Mm.
70s,
Mm-hmm.
and it was pretty famous, and it
Mm.
was dealing with the Korean War, but it was a mash unit, which was a medical unit out in the mountains. Uh, so they were intense, and they were servicing the soldiers when they came back from the battle, wounded. So something very similar is happening. They're setting up mash units really
Mm.
around the city. So there's something called primary, secondary, and tertiary uh, containment. So the primary containment is the hospitals. The secondary is what's starting to develop, where they're taking the convention centers and they're turning them into hospitals
Mm.
that are all over the city. So there's about 5 of them,
So that's
and
secondary.
that's secondary. And then if they fail, if they get overloaded, most likely what will happen is they'll start using the army bases,
Mm.
and that will be the tertiary. If it
Transporting
goes
people.
to the bases, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, um, who? Because we don't know where this. You believe it came? It's been developed. Do you think it was released accidentally, like it mutate, or like just got out, or I mean, it seems very coincidental, in my opinion, and I think you agree. If you don't believe it was an accident, who do you think? Have you narrowed down a theory, or you still could be anybody?
Well, I mean, right now I'm at 65% saying that it was accidental release of either the scientific strain or the bioweapon. Okay, because both of them were at the P4 lab. So that means the 35% chance, if you're just a betting man, 35% chance it was on purpose. Now, if it was on purpose, it was either someone against the CCP or someone that was for the CCP. Now, if you're against the CCP, it could be, I know this is kind of wonky what I'm saying, but
I
if
understand.
you're against the CCP, then it either is a foreign state that did it, that infiltrated the P4 lab, maybe
Mhm.
CIA, maybe, or someone within the Five Eyes, England
Or
or whatever.
do
It could
you
be
think it
any,
could be Russia or Israel,
or,
maybe too?
well, the Five Eyes, anyone
Mm.
in the Five Eyes.
Well, I don't think
So,
Russia's in that though. Five Eyes is
no,
only
no,
English
Five Eyes,
speaking.
Russia's not in it, but I don't think
Yeah.
Russia would have done it.
Okay.
But it wouldn't surprise me if it was the United States.
Yeah.
Maybe, if
It wouldn't surprise me either. Yeah.
or it was someone that internally didn't like the CCP.
Mm.
So Chinese dissidents.
Mm. If it was that case, hypothetically,
So
I don't think they were thinking very far ahead.
well, here is the thing: is that uh, if if it was a Western power that did it, they must have not known the true extent of the virus when it comes to the multiple receptors. Because why would they leak something that would kill their own population more so than the Asians?
Yeah, I agree.
If the Asians leaked it, then they could have this is now only 35% chance of it happening. So I'm still on the side that it was accidentally leaked. But if you entertain the idea that it was leaked on purpose, if the CCP leaked it on purpose, they could have thought that, well, we could build up antibodies. They could build up antibodies quicker because they get infected first.
With the weakest version.
Yes. And then as this thing is moving around the population, they get stronger, they start to heal, and the rest of the world starts to weaken and
Mm.
have a high probability that it mutates and affects more Caucasians than Asians.
And this,
And so
I
they were
think,
betting that they would gain function with the CD299 and the 209 receptors. That's
Mhm.
my working hypothesis if it was the 35% chance
Mm.
scenario and it was the CCP that leaked it. Now there's a lot of ands there.
Yeah,
So the
if
probability of
thens.
that happening. So I'm still I'm still on the side that it was accidentally leaked. I want it to be accidentally leaked
Yeah, me
because
too.
if it wasn't accidentally leaked, that's a huge problem. But still, even with it being accidentally leaked, I'm stating that something very virulent that was bioengineered came out of that lab, either the scientific strain and or the bioweapon. Because I don't know too much about the RATG13 spreading across the world. There's only one sequence. There's lots of sequences of Wuhan, the different versions across the world as the world's getting infected, they're sequencing it. There's slight differences, very minor though,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of them. So that makes me think that it's possible that only one strain left the lab. And if my theory is right, that the Wuhan strain is the bioweapon version,
Yeah. So do you think this
then
particular strand is mutating more quickly, at a higher F1, if we're doing calculus, higher acceleration, right?
right, right,
Than
right, right.
previous pathogens?
What is being sequenced right now? No,
Mm.
no, no. I think it's mutating at the right at the right rate. But my worry is that it goes dormant and gains function with these other receptors. And if that happens, I'm worried about the secondary and tertiary wave. What's
Yeah.
going to happen? What's going to happen in the end of the fall season this year? That's going to be a good data point to
Yeah.
see if we're seeing gain of function with other receptors, or
When we think that
higher affinity with these other receptors.
okay. So, and you say the fall because that's maybe when we're going to be thinking, okay, this is
Secondary
behind
wave.
us. Yeah.
We're thinking it's behind us. It's that we're past the primary wave, and we get hit with the secondary wave.
Yeah.
And then
It,
there's a tertiary wave the next season, the next in the around
springtime.
February,
Hmm.
February, time frame, maybe the tertiary.
Yeah.
But we don't know until we're there. We don't know. So, but I'm betting that there's probably going to be a secondary wave here.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? That, no one really knows.
Yeah.
And we just
And
need to get past that point and sequence those infections to see do we have something really different in the spike protein.
yeah, and get ahead of this thing. Yeah, and I think another thing that people don't understand is that makes this situation so have like a lot of potential energy in it is the fact that there's so many variables in it. Like you mentioned before, finance and biology. Um, there's the border thing, which is a huge issue in this country, wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's
Yeah.
a different. I call them the pillars.
Mm.
There's the scientific pillar. There's the geopolitical pillar. There's the financial pillar. There's the civil liberties pillar,
Mm.
and they all are important.
Yeah, and all
And they
these
all have a
variables are
piece.
changing all the time too. It's like every single day, they're always changing. So the situation is always in flux, which
It's
is
it's what I
go ahead.
call the fog of war on a
Yeah,
battlefield.
definitely. Yeah, the fog of war.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
it's called. When no one has
yeah.
any idea what's actually going on. Not even the general.
Right, right.
Which, as we
I'm
can
not sure
see,
with the
the
general.
Surgeon General. What's your opinion of this guy?
Well, I don't really I haven't really been watching the Surgeon General that much.
Mm,
I've been listening. I've heard him a little bit. I've watched Fauci a lot. I've listened to Trump's speech, some of Pence's. Pence kind of puts me to sleep.
Is Fauci is saying the right things? I read something yesterday that it looked like he was understanding what was going on, but I didn't read too much.
when you say saying the right things, from whose perspective? I mean,
From our perspective, from the lay people.
I think that he's attacking the problem as a doctor would. He's not, but the thing is that he's only looking at one pillar.
Yeah.
He's
We
looking at
need
the
an
scientific
Eisenhower
pillar.
in this situation. Wouldn't you say? Some
He's
guy
looking at the science. Yeah.
who has the ability to see different sectors individually, but also at the same time, and bridge it all together. Like
Mm-hmm.
like a perfect leader like that. Someone who has the collective interests at heart and tries to meet all of those sectors and prevent the most damage from happening from all of them. But that's not really happening. We have these kind of factions all competing to take advantage of the situation, wouldn't you say?
Exactly, exactly. Fauci, I think his heart's in the right place. I don't think he's doing things nefariously or anything.
Yeah.
Um,
You just don't
but
think he
I'm
might have the
concerned.
leadership abilities?
He knows a lot about AIDS. He knows a lot about AIDS. He knows about infectious diseases and all that. The thing is I think that he may institute certain policies without even realizing it, what I call the erosion of our civil liberties,
Mm-hmm.
and this rollout of the Biopatriot Act, where it's forced vaccinations. I mean, if it destroys the economy and we go into a Great Depression, they're going to force vaccinations every
Yeah.
year on coronavirus.
Yeah.
I guarantee you that.
Yeah.
All right, and
I agree.
they're pushing, and it didn't pass in Congress, but they're going to be pushing for decashing, a digital dollar. We're never going to have coinage again.
And what's the
That's
significance of
coming.
that for people who maybe can't analyze that?
Okay, well, it means that if the Federal Reserve, it means a lot of things, but one thing is this: in the Federal Reserve goes negative interest rates, you can't pull your money out of the bank and hide it. And when it's in the banking system and you're at negative interest rates, every month your money is less because they'll be
Yeah.
taking money out. Just like if you have positive interest, they'll put money into your account every month. Well, negative interest works the other way around. The bank keeps on getting a bail-in from your account.
Yeah.
Secondly, is that the banks are fragile. So they want to play with the money supply. See, the money supply is in a lot of places. There's a lot of different ways to define money supply, but let me define it in a very simplistic way. You have money that's in your hands, in your household. There's money at the bank, and there's money at the Federal Reserve. Okay? And if you can't take out money out of the bank and put it in your house, then the money is only at the bank or only at the or at the Federal Reserve. Okay? So there's more money floating in the banking system sloshing around. When you demand money by going to the teller or the ATM machine and pulling money out, that's an immediate transaction. But when you make a purchase, that you can get your goods that you bought, but that transaction a lot of time doesn't clear until 3 days. So they can play with your money for 3 days and
Yeah.
wait. You see what I
Not to
mean?
mention the tracking. Not that that's. I think that's a secondary
Well,
issue, but
right. So that is the problem with the money supply and giving liquidity to the banks.
mm-hmm.
Now, when you look at it from a tracking perspective, a digital dollar or decashing is going to be on a blockchain, and a blockchain is going to be metatagged, and every single transaction that you do will have that metadata on it. So it's a surveillance technology. That's why I was never for crypto. I never bought crypto, never invested in crypto, don't believe in crypto.
Really?
The reason
Wow.
why? Yeah, the reason why is because I knew it was a beta test of something bigger. Bitcoin was a beta test to
You
get
think you
people
don't
to
think?
reach to get past that sociological inertia to accept digital currency.
Interesting. Wow, I have not heard that take before. That's quite interesting. Yeah, because I've heard so many people who, really smart tech people too, who are really supportive of Bitcoin. But you think
It's a surveillance technology
yeah,
because
okay,
what will happen is the Federal Reserve, when they make their own, they'll make Bitcoin illegal.
yeah, because I mean, Bitcoin in its as far as I understand it, um, the system that's in place now. I'm not talking about other cryptocurrencies necessarily because they're just a bunch popping up, and I think there's a lot of scams going on. But as far as I know, it's completely anonymous via wallet transactions. But you're saying they would implement a new cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm. The Federal
Mm,
Reserve will create their own.
yeah, which of
Mm-hmm.
course they can
Because the
control
Federal
every
Reserve is
parameter.
never going to relinquish power,
And another thing, I
right?
don't
So,
think, which I just found this out, the Federal Reserve is not part of the government, is it?
well, it's what they call a pseudo governmental agency.
Yeah, but it's
It's
private.
it's partially private, partially public. That's the problem. There it is partially it is in existence through a an act that Congress can revoke. All right.
Mm,
If Congress decides to revoke the act, the Federal Reserve closes. So there is the power, but the thing is that there are lobby groups that are so powerful that it'll never pass in Congress to revoke the act. So there's a problem.
yeah.
But the another problem is that it doesn't. We don't have transparency. They do report very, very opaquely to Congress, periodically. Yes, they have online data that you can look at. Very superficially, their balance sheet, but there's not a true audit of the Fed. And so, one, we need a true audit of the Fed.
Accountability.
Accountability, a true audit. And when we do see problems like really strange repo, transactions, like who's getting those repo transactions? Which banks are asking? All right, so when banks don't lend to each other, they have to go to the Federal Reserve to get liquidity. They have to borrow money from the Federal Reserve, and they give the Federal Reserve some sort of asset that's on their balance sheet. Okay? Usually it's overnight. But lately, for the last actually year, a little less than a year, it started about mid last year, banks were having liquidity problems. They weren't lending to each other. So banks had to keep on going to the lending facility, the overnight window for the repo market, with a lot more frequency. So the Federal Reserve opened up the window with more liquidity, that they'll lend out more money because they realized how fragile these banks were. Meanwhile, the whole economy was actually pretty good, but the banks were still shaky, which is scary.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense, does it?
Well, it is when you look at their derivative positions. They're in positions. These banks put the banks at risk. Because usually what happens is they privatize the gains and socialize the losses. And there's no accountability. And that's why the banks need to be broken up. There needs to be a trust bust of the banks. These banks are too big. Citibank, Bank of America, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, these banks, they need to be broken up, big time.
I agree.
Because they are way too fragile. So
what has happened? Reminded me of. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So what is happening is that these banks are going to the lending facility window at the Federal Reserve, and no one knows who's doing it and how much. And it should be public knowledge, because that Federal Reserve is not for the banks; it's for the public. And when they say, oh, we're trying to protect these banks so they don't get short sold in the market, because people would be worried about how stable the bank is, then that's a good thing. Because if people really understood how fragile those banks were, they wouldn't want their money in there, and it would force the CEOs to not take these risky positions. So by hiding it, it creates more fragility. By being more transparent to the American public through auditing of the Fed, of the repo market, it really shows in how fragile the banking system is, and it'll make these CEOs produce standard operating procedures where it reduces the fragility and makes them more stable and have more liquidity. So
this is not necessarily step for step, but just, I don't know, the increase in populism and nationalism and this situation, it's reminding me of the 20s and 30s.
Oh yeah.
And that really scares me.
This is like Spanish flu, 1918, the Great Depression, and the march to World War II all in one.
I mean,
because I can see in 2025 a world war happening. I can see this very realistic between the United States and China.
Yeah.
And it would start in the Pacific. It would be a naval battle at first, but that's how it starts.
Yeah, I don't even know how long something like that would last, given the firepower both nations have, especially us. But
my gut feeling is the PLA would not fight as hard as the United States would. I think that I don't think that the Chinese government is as strong as it projects. I think it's a much weaker government. And same thing, a similar analogy was with Russia. Russia was not as strong as we thought it was. In the 80s, they were in the 80s, they were not as strong as we thought they were.
Yeah.
And even during Kennedy, President Kennedy, they kept on thinking the Russians were ahead of them in nuclear technology and in nuclear weapons. They weren't.
Yeah.
It's just that we had faulty information, intel, and we always thought we were behind the eight ball. But we were farther ahead than they were. And So I suspect that China is in a similar dynamic, that they're not as strong as they think they are.
Yeah.
And
You think this might be just like, this is putting this extremely euphemistically, and of course I would never, say this literally, but just a euphemistic poke in the Giants' back, as just to see what the
maybe,
reaction would be.
maybe,
Um,
maybe,
yeah,
maybe, maybe. There is a hubris that's starting to grow in China,
yeah,
because they have had huge economic development, but that
oh yeah,
economic development was primarily due to the demand from the U.S. for Chinese goods.
yeah. It was horizontal integration, right? It wasn't vertical technological innovation. It was just copying the West.
Right, 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 right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, they very little innovation, a lot of copying. They have a lot of people to do things fast,
Mm-hmm.
um, and there was a huge demand for cheap goods in the United States, and there was
Yeah,
a lot of money to be made. And
at the cheapest price possible,
right. So
right?
the Walmart was really what started it all, shipping all the supply chain over to China. You
And that's
know,
the
you
thing
know,
too, is now that like Italy, like China has them by the balls, right?
right, right,
I mean,
literally.
and they're reaching down our pants too right now, because like, I mean, of how much we've outsourced, wouldn't you say? And
Right.
I don't know. It
Well,
seems to me
what's
that like,
interesting is
yeah, go ahead.
started moving the supply chains early on in his administration. He kept on saying, with the tariffs and all that, that move your stuff, back to the United States, and a lot
Mm,
of companies did, not enough, but that
mhm.
they were in motion of getting out of China and reconfiguring their supply
Yeah,
chain. And this was a year and a half before Wuhan happened.
yeah. So
So
would you
this
say
was
this is part
starting
of the trade war?
the actual Wuhan virus.
Mm.
Uh, you know, um,
Or would that
I
depend
mean,
on the intent? Probably.
well, it would depend on the intent. I mean,
Mm.
but again, I'm on the 65% chance that it was accidentally leaked out.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah. Me too.
but will it affect the trade? Yeah,
Of
and it will
course.
probably worsen it, because what
Mm.
will happen is I think, let's say if you had one of your family members die from this virus, are you really going to want to buy Chinese products ever again? I wouldn't.
Mm-mm.
I wouldn't. I mean,
Mm-mm.
I'm from Detroit, all right, and we didn't want to buy Japanese products, and that was just because it was decimating the car industry, not killing
Oh.
people.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
if you had someone in your family that died from COVID-19, and knowing that it came from China at
Mm.
first, you're never going to want to buy a Chinese product again.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a big incentive for China to, you know, quelch this this virus as fast as
Mm.
possible, and say it was zoonotic. Say it was, why are, the funny thing is a lot of the researchers that are saying it's zoonotic is coming out of China.
Yeah.
Well, there's an
Conveniently.
incentive. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And not only that, it's the guy who I state is the main architect of the virus,
Who is this?
Dr. Ping Zhao.
Pings out.
Yeah, P in P. It's Peng, and then the last name is Zhou.
Okay.
So he's one of the many, but he's a key player that goes all the way back to that 2008 paper that states that they inserted what they called at that time a pseudovirus with HIV to study coronaviruses and bat SARS-like viruses and how they infect human ACE2. And I have that paper that was published in the Journal of Virology on my website going all the way back to 2008 when it was published. So, there's a history here that people need to realize,
Mm-hmm.
that can be followed,
Yeah. This
that
this didn't just
justifies a
come
lot of
out of
things.
nowhere.
Right, exactly.
Mm.
This thing's been, but again, they were playing around with it, I believe, for scientific purposes, because they had an incentive. They have a problem. It's called SARS. That's zoonotic. SARS is zoonotic, you know, but they supercharged this virus with SARS and bat-like SARS and HIV,
Mm-hmm.
and it leaked out, and it's a problem. And we got to figure something out. But there's going to be a backlash. There's going to be, I think people are going to start saying, you know what? I remember that time during, the Wuhan crisis where the medication wasn't around,
Yeah.
or, grandma died, or I was sick, or,
Hmm.
I lost my job, or I lost all the money in the stock market, or whatever the case is. They're going to project their hardship of this crisis onto the CCP. And
Hmm.
I don't think it's ever coming back the way it used to be. Um, there may be a reboot of trade, some level of trade, but
Hmm.
no way near what it was pre Wuhan.
Not until, well, yeah, I agree
No, I
with
think
what you
there's going to
just
be a
said.
whole new entrepreneurial spirit in the United States,
Yeah. Yeah.
where it's going to be homegrown,
Yeah. Yeah.
and people are going to realize we want our medication made here, we want our food made here, we want our
And we're
cars made
willing to
here.
pay 10 to
Yep.
15% more to do that, right?
Yep, because the fragility is just not worth it. Because
Yeah.
most likely we're going to see this virus pop up again. If I'm right about this
I hope you're not.
dormancy,
Hmm.
and then it pops back up in 10 years, you
Yeah.
need the supply chain
Yeah.
to be here.
Hmm.
We
I think
need the
this is gonna be it's gonna cause like a backlash to the right, do you think? Or to like conservatism?
uh, maybe
Possibly.
if it could be.
Hmm.
A lot of times, what you would call conservatism is very pro-nationalistic,
Okay, yeah.
and that element of being pro-nationalistic, I can see starting to rise up again, more
Hmm.
so than it was in 2016.
Yeah. In a negative way. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's in a negative way. I
Yeah.
mean, in the sense that we've lost a lot of jobs
To
to
China.
globalization.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
have an MBA in finance, all right,
Yeah.
and with all the other education I got, but and we were taught in MBA, globalization was the right thing to do for shareholder maximization, all right. But
For
the
money,
reality
right?
of yeah, well, yeah, but that's the MBA way of saying for money, but for shareholder maximization. Now the reality of the situation is that it squeezed the lemon out of the just in time delivery supply chains, where there was no capacity, there was no shock absorbers in the
Yeah.
system. There was
Hmm.
not enough redundancy, because we always viewed redundancy as that's bad, that's waste of money,
Hmm.
that's having your capital sit. So to improve your shareholder maximization, you had to, be in real time and just in time and no redundancy, you know. But the thing is things start to fail. We have adipose tissue in our body. Why? Because there's times of feast and famine. That's our
Hmm.
shock absorber. All right. And the body is adapted to that. That there are times of a lot of food and there's times where there's no food.
Hmm.
So same thing in supply chains, where there's a lot of activity, a lot, and then there's no activity. So you need to have some redundancy to be able to, to absorb that shock.
Those hiccups. Yeah. Which
Yeah,
are
those
gonna
hiccups,
come
and we
eventually.
don't have, and you can see right now that just-in-time systems did not have enough redundancy.
Hmm.
So we're going to move towards the end of globalization from the MBA perspective, and we're going to move more towards the localization. And
Hmm.
localization is going to be about sustainability and local economic cluster development,
Hmm.
more vertical integration, in your country, and less um, uh, dependence on foreign countries,
Hmm.
especially if the Pentagon is starting to war game with a major conflict with China, which
Who
I believe is
has,
happening.
yeah, who has, like Russia did in World War II, almost an infinite supply of men.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
mean, and it's not like they care about anyone. So similar to the Soviet Union in World War II, they had the ability to throw, just swaths of millions of men to their deaths if they need to.
Hmm.
Whereas, like, although
There's
we
some
are more
there's some
powerful,
dynamics that are different. There's a little bit,
yeah,
at that time, the biggest technologies that we had were propeller planes
yeah,
and machine guns.
yeah,
Okay, but now we're in an era of sonic missiles, supersonic missiles, nuclear
ICBMs.
weapons, you know, grid takedowns. We can knock down satellites now. The battle space spectrum is so much larger and so much more
Dynamic, right?
dynamic, and it's not just dynamic; it's also lethal.
Mm.
The lethality of it is so much,
I mean, nukes
faster.
alone, yeah. Just,
It's not surprising. Like like for example, if we did something in Iran when they were bombing our bases after we killed their general and they
Mhm.
bombed our bases, Trump probably had a game plan, all right, from the generals
Oh, I'm
that
sure.
could have not using nukes though, not using tactical nukes, that could have wiped out all of the key infrastructure in Iran within
Couple
less than
hours.
no yeah like 4 or 5 hours.
Hmm.
It's all done.
Hmm.
It would be so lethal and so targeted at all the same time that
Apocalyptic.
it would knock it all out. And
Mm.
it wouldn't be nuclear.
Oh yeah,
So
definitely.
but I was actually surprised he didn't do it. I was really
You were.
thinking I was really thinking he was going to do it. But
Hmm.
I think what it was is that I think he made the decision because he was going to go on air and then he canceled the meeting. Remember, he was going to go on air and he canceled and he went on the next day.
Hmm.
I think he was saying if any American soldier was killed in those um, rocket
Conflicts.
attacks,
Yeah.
in the rocket attacks, I think he would have done it. But no American soldier was killed, and therefore he said, okay, we'll just leave it as is.
Hmm.
So I think if it was just one American soldier that was killed, I think that he would have. I think we would have
Said
seen the
something.
full lethality,
Yeah.
of the military.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're probably right there. Just the way he's been, kind of running things and handling things. Yeah. And another thing too, they might have thought of is, I mean, in the military, I know they have been aware of China for a while, but in the populace, I would say, I mean, the populace thinks Russia's the big enemy. Before this, that was my take on it. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's always Russia. It's always Russia." Where they were very unaware of China. So maybe too, he didn't do it is because he didn't want to get distracted in case of a future conflict with China. Too, I don't know.
Well,
But
there's a strange dynamic going on with Russia. I mean, honestly, Russia should be on our side. We should
I agree.
embrace Russia because by circling China, the real game
Yeah.
is China,
Oh yeah, we need to
and
fucking
we
get out
want.
of the Middle East and forget about it.
Right.
Because
I totally agree with
China's the
that.
problem right here.
Right. And siding with China will help us fight. I'm siding with
Same with
Russia will
Russia.
help us
Yeah.
fight with China,
Mhm.
because they will do the same thing that we did to the Nazis, and that was they had to fight a two-front war.
Yeah.
If they fight America and Russia, they have to fight a northern and an eastern front.
Yeah. The ring would close, I think, very quickly.
And then they would have to worry about India because India would be on our side,
Yeah, they
and
would.
they can come
Yeah.
in. They can attack from the south.
Mm. Wow, very interesting. I wrote some stuff down, doctor. Just I wanted to question you. Um, so just a little bit about, well, we've talked about the communists in other countries. What about the
Mm-hmm.
communists in our country? Do you have anything to say about that? Because they're definitely
Well, we should shoot them.
present.
We should shoot them. Next question. No, no,
Question.
but
I love this guy.
but communism doesn't work. All right, and here's the thing. I mean, like Bernie Sanders. All right, Bernie
Yeah.
Sanders is a communist. All right, I mean he's a communist.
Mhm.
I mean, so and he had his honeymoon when he got married in Russia. A
Really?
lot of people don't know this, but he
I
did
did not
that.
know this.
And then when he came back, he was saying and how great Russia was because how cheap it was to go to the ballet or the opera or something like
Oh
that.
wow. And this was back when they were actually communist.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is like at the heat of the Cold War,
Mm.
you know, you know. So I you know, it, like in Boston, all right.
Mm.
There's lots of socialists, all right, and it's a continuum, right? There's like there's um, libertarianism, you know, and then as you're moving down that spectrum, you get more and more authoritarian, you know,
Yeah.
and communism is you'll get socialism and it'll start to creep in, and then it's communism, and then it's totalitarianism.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
know many
people,
socialists who are my age or younger, and they're proud of it.
I just don't. I can't relate to that.
These
I
people
mean,
need to read.
my thinking is why wouldn't you want freedom?
Yeah.
Freedom is better
Liberty.
than, yeah, liberty is better
It's
than,
everything.
right, right. And this is my concern, or real concern with the BioPatriot Act. Same thing that happened with the Patriot Act right after 9/11. It was sold as this is a way for you to be safe, and we'll go kill bad guy in the Middle East, all right, and then everything will be okay, and we'll live a happy life just like before 9/11. Well,
Mm.
right after we killed the bad guy, uh, we never went back to a pre 9/11 day. They never took away all those extra powers, those
Mm.
war powers that we
Yeah.
gave to all these different agencies, and they kept it, and they kept on growing and growing and growing and growing.
Yeah.
Now we have the NYPD and other police forces using drones on their own citizens.
Yeah, they're doing that in England now too, and
Yeah,
citizens
it's
are
like,
snitching on each other for going outside, and it's turning
yeah,
into an authoritarian state over there. Because that's what happens in these fascist and communist states, is people just turn on each other. Like
mm-hmm.
just reading about it, like World War II, it's so interesting because of just, I mean, it's sad, obviously, but just learning about the betrayals that happened in, for example, the Netherlands, with people just selling each other out to the Nazis. And that's something I don't think people realize when you go further left, further right, when you get that when people are scared.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely.
So your
Yeah,
website,
yeah.
are you a fan of Iceland, or what's up with the Reykjavik?
Well, because I'm in finance, I did finance. The actual Lehman crash starts the financial debacle,
Mm.
the subprime mortgage debacle starts in Iceland. Starts in
The
Reykjavik.
'08 crisis?
Yeah,
Oh wow,
yeah.
I did not know that.
Technically, at that time, it's near the end of 2007 when it starts.
Do you want to go into that a
One of
little
the
bit? I don't know
banks,
this.
one of the banks there did a lot of mortgages, and so they were part of the whole mortgage-backed security system. And once that started failing, that banks start to fail, and that was one of the contagion points where it started to ripple through the whole world and
Oh,
affect
okay.
Lehman. So so
It was the Wuhan of the '08 financial crisis, in a sense.
kind
Yeah.
of in a way, yeah, yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for chatting me, Dr. Paul Cottrell. See?
Cottrell, right?
Cottrell.
Yeah.
If you want to chat again, man, I'm in the same position as you are, in the sense that I'm on a soft lockdown, but it definitely, I mean, I'm definitely not in New York where it's the worst for sure. Before we sign off, do you want to give people just a uh, in your own eyes view of kind of what's going on in there? What's the mood, or how are people? What are they thinking about? People you're connected with there. I don't know if you're
Well,
chatting. I'm
I
sure you're
think,
chatting with
yeah,
people.
yeah. I think what it is people now, after going through, some people have been doing self quarantining for a while. So people are either in the 2 or 3 week point in this.
Mm,
They're getting a little antsy. They're
yeah,
getting tired
cabin
of it.
fever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and and we're nowhere near
the end.
the end of the
Yeah,
hump
I agree.
for to see it go down. So I don't know how much more people can withstand this, on
Yeah.
top of running out of food and stuff like that.
Especially New Yorkers, right? You guys are so, I mean, not you, because you're from the Midwest, not necessarily, but it seems like, they're just so always in a hurry. It's a city that never sleeps and all that, which I'm sure
Right,
affects it. More
right,
so
right,
than
right.
people in the country, like my grandparents, for example, who, they're used to living a slow life and being indoors most of the time, or, people in the country like that. Whereas in the cities, like
Hmm.
the big cities are going to be the problem, those hot spots. Um,
Exactly,
so I will
exactly.
put all Dr. Paul Coltrell's links in the description. Um, And if you guys want to head over to his channel, he is doing updates every day, as far as I can tell, talking about it. He actually goes into the weeds even more with the science and politics. His website, dude, your website's cool, man. I'm definitely gonna check it out. I can tell you're a smart dude, and yeah, it looks like you put out some good content too. It probably won't be an extensive look through just because of all this stuff that's going on, but I'm definitely gonna bookmark it and check it out sometime.
That's what I originally, that website was just to promote my research, in the sciences, and in finance, and some thoughts that it was almost like a diary in a way.
Yeah, right.
But as this crisis happened, I kind of retrofitted it, as quickly as I could, and I started putting a lot of PDF files in the medicine section.
Okay.
And in the medicine section, so when I start talking about different research, and I say, I have a paper up on the website, and I give a link, that's the repository for these PDF files that I'm referencing, and I'm keeping everything there. So there's a diary. There's documentation
Very smart.
that's referenced to the actual video.
So nobody goes and maybe tries to erase some files.
Well, exactly.
Like
well, this is what happened. Was the HIV paper that came out, that was pulled down, and if it wasn't for us,
that's what I'm saying,
researchers out there, and pull down the actual PDF file and put it on other servers, we would have lost that data.
Yeah. That's why, like I saw a tweet yesterday of some girl, young person, saying like about people are depressed because they feel powerless, and I just really want people to know that they're not powerless.
You can be empowered through this.
Oh
through
yeah,
this
definitely,
experience.
definitely, and especially just communicating the truth, what you know to be the truth to people, because that, I mean, these media sources, the trust is, this isn't there, and that's another thing too that I think has contributed to this. It's like, it's the boy who cried wolf, right? I mean, there's always this panic, and then when there actually is some danger, some real danger, like everyone's like, oh, it's a hoax. It's so in a sense, the media has dug many people's graves for them, dug their own graves in a sense, but it's really unfortunate. But I'll let you go, doctor. I know it's you're definitely you're like 4 or 5 hours, 4 hours ahead of me, right? So it's almost
it's almost 10.
Yeah. So you're going to bed soon, I'm sure, getting ready. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. I one last thing I wanted to mention. I talked to this neuroscientist yesterday, and he lives in Japan. He believes he got it but got over it, and he has been doing a lot of research on Tourette's over the course of his career and involuntary responses. And he's really interested in the aspect. I want to know if you have a take on this, the aspect of people involuntarily losing control of their breathing, people spitting on nurses while they're in quarantine or while they're in the hospital. So he's concerned about this. I don't know if you've heard about this at all. But
I didn't know about the spitting. But I do know that because of the vagus nerve being potentially an infected part of the body, especially more advanced cases of COVID-19, that you could have different organs. The vagus nerve innervates different organs, and they're all involuntary muscle contractions, or endocrine kind of communication. So vagus nerve is a major important nerve to help with the heart pumping, the lung breathing, the peristalsis of the intestines as it's moving feces through. If that starts to shut down, you won't have those contractions, those muscle contractions. So it wouldn't surprise me that this virus could affect the vagus nerve. Now the question is it affecting? I've had 2 debates with doctors about this. The question is it bottom up or top down infection? Meaning, is the organ starting to get infected, and the innervation from the vagus nerve to the organ is starting to get diseased, and the connections aren't working right, and so the organ isn't working? Or is it that it's going through the some sort of like meningitis kind of thing, where it's getting into the spinal fluid and up into the brain, and it's top down,
That's
where
what he said, actually.
the signals that's well, there's some evidence that there's been some cases where patients, COVID-19 patients, have gliosis. So gliosis is basically a disease, scarring of the glia cells in the brain. So that suggests that it's more top down.
The latter.
But it could be both. If the infection gets into your into your spinal fluid and up into the brain area, all right, and cause an infection in the brain, what will happen is the glia cells will start to die because of inflammation and start to scar. That scarring is called gliosis. So it's possible that this infection, this virus, either gets into the spinal fluid like a meningitis, or causes causes an immune response that overactivates the glia cells in the brain. Because for example, you could have an infection in your lungs, spike up your pro-inflammatory cytokines, and cause something to go wrong in your brain with the glia cells, but the virus is not in your brain.
Oh, okay. So that's a possibility.
Or the virus gets into the brain and causes the inflammation.
Yeah. He told me.
So that's what we mean. That's what we mean by top down or bottom up.
Okay. He told me it was the latter. He told me that it travels up the spinal fluid to the medulla and hijacks the CNS, which, dude, that is so scary. That's zombie stuff. That's like a zombie virus, right? Like rabies. Rabies does that too, he told me. It's similar in the sense that it's also neurotrophic, is what the word he used.
Yeah, right. So the case that had the gliosis had severe headaches, and this person never had headaches, and they kept on wanting to hit their head on the wall. They just like, I mean, that's like zombie stuff.
It is, yeah.
Because their head hurt so much, they kept on hitting their head on the wall. So so that wouldn't surprise me that his hypothesis is right.
Yeah, and
that it's a bottom up. It's a top down instead of bottom up.
Yeah. Because I'm only seeing it and like I've seen just one video of a nurse who said like this patient just spit on me, and like because I mean you do get like those idiotic cases mostly in the United States of like that. I don't know if you saw the moron in Missouri who got arrested for terrorism for licking Walmart. And I don't think he had it, but why would you do that? Why would you do that when you already know you have it and you're already in the hospital getting help? It doesn't make any sense. Why would you just like be spitting on nurses and stuff?
The nerves that are innervating the spitting function, the muscles on the face, that's a different nerve. Okay. I would have to look up what the nerve is. I think it's like nerve 5, or maybe it's nerve 7, but whatever it is, it's not the vagus nerve. Okay. So what's interesting is that it could affect multiple nervous systems.
Yeah.
We have multiple nerves that are innervating all of our body. And depending on what's wrong, they can deduce which nerve it is. Okay? But what I saw was cases where you have the gliosis and severe headaches and the pounding of the head onto an object or a wall. Just the pain was so bad that hitting the head was better than dealing with the headache. That's really weird.
Yeah, that's like a cluster headache. But but
even then, like, I don't know. I mean, it's like, because some people that have severe migraines are suicidal, actually. So that's at that level of suicide. Yeah, the suicidal level headache
of pain.
But it wouldn't surprise me that this virus is affecting different nervous systems where you're not able to control. You're not able to control it, and then it just causes this this reaction.
That would be scary, man.
I think it's very rare, though. I think it's rare cases. I think when you're talking about like 100, when you're talking about, let's say, 100 cases, that have COVID-19, you're probably only talking about less than 1% that have this neurological problem. But I
Yeah.
think it does. I think it's there. I think
Yeah.
there is.
Potential. Yeah. And that's, yeah, stuff like that is quite frightening. But thank you so much, Dr. Paul. And if you do want to talk to him, his name is, we chatted for like almost 4 hours yesterday. His name is Kevin McCairn,
Is he in?
PhD.
He's in Japan?
He's on the mainland right now. Yeah. He said just on his area, there's a young man that got it and an old man that got it earlier
So
this
when
week.
you, okay, all right.
Mhm.
So yeah, if you can send me the contact information, I'll
Yeah.
reach out
Yeah.
to him. I
Definitely.
want to talk to him about it because that has been something that's been on my mind on what is going on with the vagus nerve.
Hmm.
Because I think that that is one of the signs and why the sudden deaths were happening in Iran. And some of the cases that we heard about in Wuhan, where there was sudden death,
Okay.
that I suspect that that sudden death is related it's neurological.
Yeah.
So,
Not physiological, right?
well, I mean,
Or what
well, they
would
are
be?
both. I mean, neurological is physiological,
Yeah, yeah, right,
but
right.
there's I think some. I think that some of the sudden deaths are because of the vagus nerve being infected,
Hmm.
and I think other sudden deaths are because of a lack of the ability to maintain blood pressure.
So the heart
So
can't
I think
circulate
some of
blood.
it's endocrine, some of it's an endocrine disruption, okay, because of hormonal imbalance.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is neurological, and it might be a combination. It might be some, in some patients, it's a combination of
Hmm.
neurological and hormonal.
Is that
So I'd like to talk to someone that might have some,
yeah, man?
specific
We talked for about
knowledge on
four
it.
hours. He really wants. He told me this too. He's like, yeah, we should definitely keep these channels open, communication channels all over the world. Because I talked to my friend in Okinawa yesterday. I'm gonna interview him tonight if he has time. Just so people kind of know, so they hear it from people like a citizen. Um, and he said they only have like 7 or 8 cases there, so I think they're quite safe there. And in Asia too, they wear masks, almost all the time, anyways. But yeah, I will definitely set you up with Kevin. I think he's upgrading his camera too, because at the beginning of our podcast, it was pretty crappy, but as we went on, it got better. And he said he has another one that he's been having trouble using with his sound system, but hopefully he can get that up and running, and you guys can get chatting. And if anybody wants to see his links, Dr. Paul Cottrell's links, again, they will be in the description box below. Go follow him, check out his videos, check out his analysis of this situation. It's changing by the minute for all of us. So remain calm, be grateful, wash your hands, cover your face, and everyone have a great night. And thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you so much, Dr. Paul Cottrell. I really appreciate the chance to talk to you.
Yeah, we'll do it again. Thank you.
Definitely. Ciao.
Okay. Okay. Bye bye.